To pin or not to repin other people's content on Pinterest. This is exactly what you need to know in regards to marketing your business on Pinterest. I'm Emily Bales. I'm a Pinterest marketing and ads strategist. And for the past 4 years, I've helped my clients and my students increase their traffic and turn it into profit through the power of Pinterest marketing. So I've been getting asked on Instagram, I've been getting asked on TikTok, I've been getting asked on YouTube, and some people have even said, I've searched your content and I'm not really finding an answer. So I thought today in this episode, I would break down exactly what you need to know about repinning other people's content on Pinterest. So let's first talk about when you're thinking about how many times a day to pin. Should you repin other people's content? These are all very tactical things. And what I see a lot of business owners doing is they get really caught up and wrapped up in kind of obsessing over those tactics. And yes, they are important because tactics are essentially the shorter term goals that you are putting together that are going to ultimately help you achieve your long-term goal or your entire strategy for using Pinterest. So for example, I am using Pinterest to drive traffic to my site. And essentially once people get to my site, I want them to become a lead for me. So I want them to sign up for my email list. And the way that I'm getting them to sign up for my email list is through a free masterclass. Once they're on that masterclass, that allows me to obviously serve amazing content to them, nurture them, and then I'm ultimately telling them how I can continue to help them and serve them within their business with Pinterest strategies. So the next step would ultimately be buying my Pinterest course, Pinterest Marketing Magic. So my whole goal, my whole strategy for using Pinterest is to essentially get leads for my masterclass and get people into that funnel. So all of the tactics that I'm putting together, they are driving that lead generation for my business. So like I mentioned, a lot of business owners do like to kind of become obsessed with those tactics because they think there's this magic number where if you pin 3 times a day or you pin 25 times a day, that is going to be the trick that ultimately gets you to see more traffic, more saves, more sales for your business. And it just doesn't work that way. Everybody's businesses are different and unique, and honestly, what works for one person might not work for somebody else's. Now, there are some foundational best practices, and that's what we're gonna get into with this specific tactic today in regards to should you repin other people's content or should you not? So now that we have talked about really the difference between the tactics and the strategy, and although the tactics are important, they're not gonna be a total make or break, but they're one of those things that can and probably will change frequently. So up until this point, if you have been repinning content from other people's and then you watch this video, you're like, oh my gosh, like I've been doing it all wrong. Don't spiral. It's okay. So the next point I want to lead into is that question that I'm answering today. Should you repin or should you not? And the answer is no. I do not recommend repinning other people's content. Now, that might sound a little strange because at one point, everybody thought that there was this magic or unspoken rule where there was even a ratio where people would say, oh, well, you need to pin 80% of other people's content and 20% of yours. So people got so specific as to even giving percentages. And Pinterest has actually come out and said there are no unspoken or hidden rules where you have to repin other people's content. So if you are pinning 100% of your content, you are not going to be penalized. Your pins aren't going to be less distributed because of that. Nothing like that. Now, you might be wondering, why would I not pin other people's content, especially if it's serving my audience? And that's a really great question. So you have to get back to really the whole purpose of why you're using Pinterest, and that is to drive traffic to your business, right? So when you are repinning somebody else's and you're distributing other people's content, you're essentially marketing for them. And so that ultimately isn't going to serve you. that would be, when you think about it, like on Instagram, you're not posting for other people's businesses, right? Now, obviously, Instagram and Pinterest are very different, but if you're thinking, well, that seems kind of selfish, that's okay. It's okay to be selfish with your business. Now, on a great occasion, if you see a pin that you really do just want to save, or I've had friends that have a like-minded business or something that's relevant that my audience would also be interested in, then I'm happy to save that pin, especially if I feel like it's gonna serve my audience. But ultimately, it's not a requirement, and that's what I want to stress. So now you might be wondering, okay, now is there ever a time where you should repin other people's content? And there can be a time and a place where it might make sense. So let's talk about a specific example where I might actually repin other people's content for my client accounts. So a very specific example would be if I'm just getting somebody's account set up. And let's say this is something foundational I teach. When you're setting up your account, you want to create 10 to 15 boards that are going to ultimately serve as your content buckets, and they're going to house your pillar content. However, if you're just getting started on Pinterest, you might not have a lot of pins created yet, and you might not really have any content to put on those boards. So when you're first getting started, if you want to create that board and you don't want it to just sit empty, you can pin a few different pins to essentially also help Pinterest understand who you are, what type of content you are going to be sharing, what keywords you might want to start ranking for. And so it's starting to tell Pinterest this information about your account. So I think in the very beginning, it is okay to repin other pins from, like I said, like-minded creators where their content is also going to serve your audience. But there are a few things I want you to keep in mind when you are doing that repinning. And one thing in particular is you want to filter those pins that you're sharing, because you don't really want to lead somebody directly to a competitor's product, right? Now, one type of pin that you could share that would serve your audience would be a blog post or some type of free or valuable information that's really inspiring and is going to help your audience, but like I said, isn't becoming a direct competitor. So I would say one that is asking either for the direct sale, or even if it's to somebody's lead magnet, I would avoid probably pinning those types of pins and really sticking to blog content, that inspirational content that is not going to really be competitive with you. And one thing that's really nice too that Pinterest does is that when you create that brand new board and Pinterest kind of knows, okay, this is a new board, let's try to get some content onto it, they will actually show you pins that they are recommending for that specific board. So a lot of times I will look through those pins, figure out which ones I want to save, and like I said, when I'm setting up a new account, I might select a couple of pins to house on that board until I can get some of my clients' content on that board. Now, of course, one thing that I like to do is just have pins ready to go so that as I'm creating the boards, then I can also start scheduling those pins, and then I can start quickly filing in my clients' pins to those boards. So we're not long-term relying on other people's content, if that makes sense. So it's definitely not something I would recommend doing over and over again, meaning that it doesn't need to be a part of your strategy indefinitely. So once you do start to get content onto your boards and you're telling Pinterest who you are, who you're serving, what type of keywords you want to rank for, and Pinterest is really indexing all of this for you, then what you're gonna wanna do is move away from repinning anybody else's content. So when somebody asked me on TikTok, or literally just yesterday, and this is why I'm creating this YouTube videos because I want to serve you, they asked me, okay, so tell me, do I repin somebody's content or not? They asked me this on Instagram. So then, you know, it's a little bit hard to just explain in one or two blanket sentences because there are different circumstances where it could make sense or maybe it doesn't make sense. So like I mentioned, as you continue to be consistent on Pinterest, you're gonna wanna move away from repinning other people's content period. So as we wrap up this episode today, I would love to invite you to subscribe to my channel. I am sharing a new episode every single week. I would love for you to like this video if it was helpful, and let me know in the comments what questions you have, because whether it has to do with repinning other people's content or not, or maybe it's just a burning Pinterest question that you still have that you were like, oh, that would be really cool if Emily created a YouTube video over my specific question. That is what I really want to do with this YouTube channel, is serve you and help you learn how to market effectively on Pinterest, because not to be dramatic, Pinterest has kind of changed my life. Not to get into my story, but ultimately, I was getting burned out on social media, and when I discovered Pinterest, it was a breath of fresh air for me. And so now I want to help business owners like you learn the power of Pinterest and see that there is another way to increase traffic, leads, and sales apart from just sticking to social media. So like I said, like this video, subscribe to my channel, let me know in the comments what questions you have, and I can't wait to see you again in next week's episode. Bye for now.